keep an eye on your competition. Don't think that just because you have a great product or a service that you will always be ahead of them. Think global, act local.
What advice can you give to someone right now who's watching you saying, I want to be the president of the company that I'm working for? A company similar to Procter and Gamble might be Procter and Gamble. What is it going to take for this person to have the highest probability of achieving that goal?
Master what you are required to do in every role that you have. Become a master at it. Try to discern the difference between managing and leading.
Wow. These are some amazing assets that anyone applying to a company should really be aware of. Hey everyone, Riyaz here with 3D Crystal and Cockpit 3D. And this is our effort where we bring into the room people that you normally would not get an opportunity to speak to. And today it's my honor to have Shabbir Jaffer with me. I've known Shabbir for years and I've actually looked up a bio for him. So Shabbir, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read this one to everyone before we start our discussion. So Shabbir Jaffer spent 35 years with Procter and Gamble, which is a Fortune 500 company, where he gained extensive leadership, key account management, and trade marketing experience before retiring in 2014. He started his career with P&G in the UK in 1979 after being recruited from his university to work in their sales or customer business development department. He progressed through various roles of increased responsibility before transferring to P&G Canada in 1991. In 1999, he and his family moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where he took up a 2-year international assignment working in their Arabian Peninsula market, covering 6 countries. After returning to Canada, he gained more valuable experience by working in a regional North American training role before rejoining P&G's Canadian business as a senior account executive. Shabbir possesses a long track record for delivering strong business results, recruiting and training others, and enabling organizational change and development. He is able to lead, motivate, and work effectively with diverse individuals. Other key strengths that Shabbir is known for are flexibility, versatility, and being able to remain calm under pressure. Additionally, his work is always accompanied by a distinct sense of integrity, commitment, and willingness to take calculated risk in order to meet objectives. Shabbir Jaffer. I can attest to the last sentence over here because I had the unique privilege of working alongside you for a few years at Procter and Gamble. I saw how well you were respected, not only by your superiors, by your counterpart, by those that reported to you. It's an absolute honor to have you with me today.
Thank you very much, Riyaz. You're too kind.
So, Shabbir, the saying is that as goes Tide, so goes P&G. Tide, of course, being the number one multi-billion-dollar brand, bringing billions a year in revenue. And you had the opportunity to go on an adventure. I remember you were taking care of the Tide laundry and detergent category at Procter and Gamble for a few years in Canada. And you've just done so much with the company. So the purpose today is really to share the knowledge of what you've had in your journey with those that are perhaps just starting their journey or are midway through their journey, to help them navigate to really achieve what it is that they're dreaming to achieve. And I want to take this back. Okay, so let's talk to a student right now. A student is in their 3rd or 4th year of college, university, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I want to apply to a company. I want to, work my way up at a well-respected company. You obviously, evaluated various companies and you applied to P&G. What made you choose P&G and what was that whole interview process like?
Great question. I chose P&G together with a few other what we call blue chip companies because I felt that they would offer me the opportunity to develop my potential, my strengths, and help and teach me what it was to do business in both a local as well as a global marketplace. Business was where I had set my heart on, whether it was marketing or sales. Those were some of the 2 key areas that I wanted to explore. And so I applied to P&G, as I said, amongst others, during my last academic year at university in England. The process in those days was interesting in that we what they did was they had something that was called the milk round, if you can believe it. It was affectionately known as the milk round, where companies would advertise their positions at university career centers. Students would be encouraged to apply. They'd have to send in and complete long application forms in cursive writing, none of this computer stuff, okay, and send them in. And the career center would then sort them and mail them for us. And if your application, passed muster or piqued an interest, then you would be lucky enough to be called for an interview, either on campus or at one of the regional offices. In my case, the local P&G district manager called me up, interviewed me, and then he literally pursued me until I gave in. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. And so even though I was juggling three other job offers at the time, I, in the end, opted for P&G. And, after 35 years, I'm still glad I made that decision and I joined them.
So two things come out of what you've just said here. The first is that the recruiting manager pursued you. Now, what was it about who you were, your skills or your personality that put you in a position where they were so interested in having you try them out? Because it really is a two-way test at the end of the day. So what was it?
I honestly can't say exactly what it was, but I'll give you an idea of what P&G were looking for and still look for in their recruits. And perhaps in the eyes of that particular manager, I met those. And that is an ability to lead, ability to work in teams effectively, ability to set priorities and solve problems, an ability to influence others. Communication skills was also key. And I'd say finally, a commitment to excellence, evidence that this person has shown that they are very driven and very willing to pursue the highest goals, no matter what it takes, but obviously while maintaining their personal integrity. Those are some of the things or qualities or traits that we look for in new recruits. And because those qualities have been proven to be the hallmark of successful senior managers at P&G. So we look for those in the recruits, in the talent that we bring in the hope that those same traits can be replicated when they work with us.
So did you just hear that? Like, these are some amazing buzzwords, some amazing characteristics, some amazing assets that anyone applying to a company should really be aware of. Rewind and listen to what Shabbir has just said. Problem solving, leadership, prioritization. These are qualities that enable, and it's not just about being successful in a corporate career, okay? It's about being successful in whatever it is that you do. These are the traits that Shabbir used the word are a hallmark to people that are going to be senior managers and decision makers for some very important decisions. I mean, Shabbir, you were taking care of, as I mentioned earlier, Tide, a multi-billion-dollar brand a year. You had huge budgets that you had to be responsible for. And clearly, the decisions that you make are going to impact not just your department, not just the category, but the bottom line for the company and the shareholders as well, right? So did you know when you joined, did you ever imagine that you would be there for an entire career?
I probably did, because think about it. In the 1970s and 80s, it wasn't unusual for somebody to join a company and stay with them for the rest of their lives or their career. Longevity was valued. The ability to stay with the company was valued. People who flitted around and went from company to company were seen as butterflies and probably not a step. Now, in today's world, the opposite is true. And quite rightly so, because if you don't flit around, as they say, if you don't move from company to company and gain valuable experience, you are not seen as somebody as who can provide the value that another company needs. But in those days, staying with a company that long was a matter of fact.
I can say now as an employer and, at 3D Crystal, we're not just looking at one country. Now we're expanded to the continents. And one thing that in leading this company, our goal and our focus and what we consider perhaps success is the retention of our team, is our team performing well, enjoying their time and loving what they do so much that it's never about excited for a Friday, but it's having that eagerness to get to what they do on a Monday, which is very tough, by the way. I mean, it's, a lot of people, unfortunately, are in a position where they just enjoy 1.5 days of the week, Friday evening and Saturday. Sunday's a write-off because they're worried about Monday again, right? So what is it that, Procter and Gamble, because I saw this not just with yourself, but many of your colleagues, so loyal to the company. What is it that Procter and Gamble did right and does right?
Well, first of all, let me approach it this way. The first things I noticed that were different about the company that I joined was it clearly had a high quality product lineup. It had solid consumer understanding. It had marketing strengths. And the caliber of its employees was second to none. The people I worked with, for instance, from upper management all the way down, were bright, enthusiastic, mostly easy to work with, and they were committed to success, but not committed to success, but not at the expense of poor relationships, questionable practices, and compromising ethical standards. That's the first thing I noticed that was different. But as I stayed there, and in my first year, I was given a very good reason, which I would like to share, as to why I should stay with this company. And it goes to the question that you asked me is, what did they do right that they would keep me for that long? There were two things. Firstly, they trained and developed me to my full potential, regardless of the role they put me into. They then promoted me at the right time of my development and ensured that I had the right resources and training and backup to succeed in that new role. Secondly, and I love to tell this story because a lot of people it just opens people's eyes, is that it demanded a commitment to integrity. Early in my career, I was faced with a situation. I think it was 1980s England. Yes, it was rare to see a person of color working on the front line for such a prestigious big global company. You didn't see that so much. It was mainly white faces and primarily white male faces. For most of my colleagues and my customers, my background and my ethnic being wasn't a concern. But one day, during a business meeting I had with a customer, he directed some rather nasty racist remarks towards me. My reaction was, I was obviously stunned, but then I picked up my briefcase. I informed him that I always tried to do business like a gentleman, and that whenever he was ready to do business like a gentleman, he should call. And with that, I walked out of his office with my mouth in my heart, trying to work out, okay, what am I going to do next? I then called and reported the matter to my manager, my immediate manager. He spoke to his manager, that's my two-up manager, and the two-up manager, called me and said, nobody talks to a P&G employee in that way. I want you to close the account of that company and stop any future shipments of our product to them. We do not want their business anymore. So here was a company willing to close down a customer because it had insulted one of its employees. That was, to me, remarkable. Now, a few days later, that customer, the offending customer, came back, called me up, apologized, said, let's do business again, and which I did. But that directive from my two-up manager was something I never forgot because it showed they had my back. It showed that during my career, I was approached and by several other companies, but I was never tempted to jump the ship, primarily because of the support P&G had given.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that really talks to the integrity of a company, whether it's, people that are working for a company, whether it's people that are leading their own companies and how they treat their staff, how they protect their staff. So I can see the loyalty coming up very quickly on that one once they show that they've got your back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
You know, I remember when I was there, and I told you this when we spoke on the phone prior to this interview today, that I was there for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I just learned so much. You were there for 35 years, an entire career. I can only imagine, the depth of knowledge that you have. Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of skills or lessons or anything that, you think you can impart to the viewers right now from some of the top level stuff that you might have picked up and learned?
If I can summarize my learnings and the lessons that I took from my experience there, I would do it in under two categories. Firstly, on the business side. So this is just generic advice to the listeners and the viewers of this. Number one is to really understand your target consumer or your customer and the motivators that would make them buy and use your product or your service. Remember, those motivators will change over time because that's what the market is. The trends and the tastes inevitably change over time. And so you need to be agile enough to respond. You may need to reinvent your products or your service to ensure that they continue to deliver superior value to your customers. And at all times, keep a laser-like focus on your customers' needs. Spend what you need to get that understanding, because that's all important, especially if you're thinking of going international or going beyond your immediate borders. Then develop whatever product you have to the extent that it delights them, to use a popular expression. Secondly, keep an eye on your competition. Don't think that just because you have a great product or a service that you will always be ahead of them. Business trends are too dynamic. It just doesn't work that way. Even P&G learned that lesson several times when the competition caught up and they actually overtook. Listen to your customers. Listen to the people who distribute your products out in the marketplace. They have their eye to the ground much closer than you do. And so, listening to them and taking their advice is a good thing to do. Be informed about what's happening in the world today at a geopolitical level, at a financial level, at a business level, at a societal level. It will help you predict what your business could look like in a few years' time. To use a hockey analogy, be where the puck is going to be, not where it is now. Okay? If you're going to launch innovative new products, do so, but keep a close eye on your existing products because they are the core of your revenue and your profit. And if you neglect them, that could be a regrettable decision down the road. And finally, if you let your consumer or your customer down, own up to it right away. No excuses. So that's on a business level, some key pointers and lessons. Just very quickly on the management of people side. Number one would be principled, pragmatic, and maintain integrity. Never let the prospect of advancing your personal career by making questionable decisions, compromises, shortcuts, never let those things steer your thinking. It's not worth the loss of your reputation or a good night's sleep, for that matter. And it will always come back to haunt you, as I saw time and time again with some colleagues through my 35 years at P&G who tried the shortcuts, who tried to do things differently and were pulled up for it. Always treat the people you work with or manage them the way you would like to be treated. Okay? Fairly, with respect, with compassion. Try not to judge people for getting themselves into difficulty. We're all humans. We're all fallible. At some point, we're going to lose it. We're going to lose track. Help people to recover, to regain their selves so that they can contribute to your company again. Again, I saw examples of that a few times in my career. Remember that the interests of your company and all employees all its employees are inseparable. Lead or manage your business with that mindset if you can. And finally, and I guess the way to encapsulate everything I said above, do the right thing for the business and for your people. Always. That's it.
Shabbir Jaffer, man, that's exactly what I was hoping to be getting in this interview today, is those sorts of words of advice. It's brilliant. I'm going to actually ask the producer to make sure that they take this specific part of the interview and make sure that you're emphasizing this wherever this is being broadcasted, because it's just such valuable tips and such valuable information. Shabbir, I want to ask you about globalization. Okay.
Mhm.
We are now, as I said, expanding to various continents. And I always think back to Procter and Gamble, an American company, making American brands, yet they're so successful in selling their brand in China, in India, in Australia, all around the world. And they're doing something right to be able to connect with the local consumers, despite not being an Indian company or not being a Chinese company, but being an American brand, an American company.
Mm.
Can you talk to what is it that how have they been able to do that?
Yeah. I would summarize it using a famous adage, which goes, think global, act local. And what that means is, that's the kind of thing that has made companies like P&G successful at a global level. In a nutshell, it means that after identifying the market that you want to expand your business into, i.e. the white space that's out there, do the work of understanding that consumer, their consumer, its needs or her needs, and how they are being met by products that exist. If you have products that are superior to what the offerings are in that country or in that region, and that the business environment is friendly and open to you, and you can do that, then grasp that opportunity. But do your homework and then expand into that market. Be prepared to invest what's required to get you that foothold. That's what P&G did in the 70s and 80s in the so-called white space areas like the Far East, the Middle East, and South America. And then later on in the 1990s and 2000s in Eastern Europe after the fall of communism there. So I would say that those are the kind of things that make them successful. And understanding consumer needs is not always easy. I'll give you a very quick example. When I worked in the Middle East, we were planning to launch Febreze, which at that time was just a fabric refresher. And as you know, the idea of Febreze is to eliminate a bad odor from a piece of fabric or a sofa or an item of clothing. We went in there with the mindset that it would appeal to consumers there just as it did to North American and UK consumers. But what we didn't realize was that the Middle Eastern consumer didn't simply want the odor to be eliminated. She wanted it to be replaced with a nice, fresh odor, whether it be the local wood or some other herb or scent. And what Febreze was doing wasn't necessarily delivering on that, or if it was delivering it, under-delivering it with the light scent that it had at the time. But after realizing that, P&G was agile enough to quickly change the formulation and market the right product. But it's so easy to miss those little things and get it wrong.
Very interesting. I want to take this back to the 1800s. Okay, so it was in the 1800s that P&G was formed, and it was a candle maker and a soap maker that come together, and one had the family name Procter, the other had the family name Gamble, and so history began. Two products, two commodities, and today multi-billion-dollar brand. You weren't around back then to be able to talk about the entire journey, but you've been exposed to a lot of the stories, a lot of literature on Procter and Gamble, how it started. You've kind of heard a lot of. What is it, that P&G was able to do from when it was just two products to now to succeed and to grow to what it is today?
Good question. Just as an aside, I smiled a little when you mentioned about the founders of the company, Mr. Procter and Mr. Gamble, because I remember as a young trainee going in to see a customer in the UK and being greeted by the customer with the words, "Hello, Procter, where's Gamble?" And that's typical British humor. But the fact of the matter is the ability to succeed, from humble beginnings, was not something that came easily. It took work and perseverance. It took good ideas. It took good employees, bright ideas. But I would say that in the recent history of P&G, its agility and ability to change with the market and with its consumer in a rather dynamic world that we have today. That wasn't always the case. We learned it the hard way, for example, in 2000, when our business and markets shares started to decline, and with that, our stock price. At that point, we were forced to refocus, to reinvent, and refocus on the right priorities and change much of what we were doing. We reconfigured our supply chains, for instance. We went to more regional producing plants. We closed some of the local producing plants down, or we converted them into distribution centers. We created new regional or global business units instead of having the profit centers based within each country, which at that point in time didn't make any sense. So reorganizing our country-based organizations within a few years of making those required changes, and with the help of new leadership, etc., we regained our confidence, and with that, our market-leading positions. And our employees, more importantly, suddenly had a spring in their step again.
Wow. So it's not about celebrating only when things are amazing, but it's in being able to problem solve and figure it out when things are just not going the way that we'd want them to. And that's I think key qualities that you talked about, which is problem solving in the people that the company looks to recruit, right?
Yes, indeed.
There's a couple things I wanted to bring up. One was, I recall that when I was there, you were appointed a very responsible position. And that was the position of training. Essentially what the company was telling you when they asked you to accept that role was that they were putting their trust in you to train people that would be the future of the company. The future of the company was going to be dependent on the skill set of these people that you were training. What did it mean to you when the company asked you to assume that role? And tell me a little bit about that role and what you enjoyed about it.
I'd love to. That North American CBD training unit was formed in the aftermath of that period of decline that I referred to a few moments ago, market share decline and business decline. And it was a result of the company rethinking or thinking that it had to do things better, things differently. And one of the ideas in terms of ensuring that its people met the new challenges was to provide new forms of training and development, as well as building on the previous ones. And so this unit of North American-based people was formed. I represented Canada on the team. We had, I think, 7 others or 8 others from the US, from the various regions in the US. And we were led by an associate director at the time. And our job was unique in that sense. I've always been grateful for that opportunity. It allowed me to take the knowledge and the skills that I had learned over the last 20 years of my career, and then pool those with the 7 or 8 others who were like me to create and to run new training modules and new development programs for people as part of the CBD structure. And in doing that, we were able to deliver on our mandate. Some of the modules that we put together are being used even today. And we were very proud to be part of that team. And it gave us that unique opportunity. So that's that's in a nutshell what we did that on that occasion.
You became a mentor for many people. And throughout your career, I'm sure that you've had colleagues and managers that have influenced and, left their mark on you and kind of helped shape who you became. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the traits of the mentors that you had.
I would look at some of the mentors that I had as offering, first and foremost, sage advice that was coming from an objective point of view, not as my immediate manager. A mentor is not usually your immediate manager who has a vested interest in your development. It's somebody who has agreed to mentor you, to guide you from a completely objective standpoint, to look at what you're doing from a completely objective standpoint, and to then guide you accordingly. And I was delighted to have a few mentors along the way, people who influenced my thinking, people who helped influence my career. And they offered not only sage advice, but insights into how the company works, how things work within the company in terms of people development and training and the training needed to get to new positions. So if you went to your mentor and said, my ambition is to become X by the year 2020, then he or she, in my case, I had both, would sit with you and give you an idea of how you could go about that. And they would also sometimes advocate for you. And that was sometimes, that was often a helpful piece of advice to have or backing to have, because they would advocate for you in the right circles, if they could. And that would certainly make the path a little easier. So I would submit that mentorship is a very, not difficult, but a very challenging thing to do. But nevertheless, some people do it much better than others.
As I listen to you speak, I have one final question that I'd like to ask. I remember we attended, I think it was our quarterly meetings, where the entire company would come down and our president at that time, Tim Penner, would give us, a review of what happened in the last quarter and how we were performing. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but at that meeting, Tim asked a question, and this was not something that you knew was going to come at you, but he asked you a number in terms of what was the index of the account that you were currently working on for the previous quarter. And he asked you about indices, and he asked you about percentage growth. And without even knowing that this question was going to come to you, I mean, it's hard enough doing it in a one-on-one, but now you have an entire audience there. Yet I remember you immediately were able to give him the response that he was looking. You had the numbers ready in your mind. When you responded to this question, me and at that time it was my manager, Joel, were like, we saw this response and we were like, wow, this is what it takes to know your business, to know your numbers, to be able to kind of be in it, live it, breathe it. And, you made the decision to go so far in your career in the company. Should you have wanted to pursue further, I'm sure that you would have gone even further, but everybody has where they want to get to in their career. And there are those that want to start a career and they want to be the CEO. They want to lead the company. They want to be they want to be at the top. You've dealt with a lot of people at the top. What advice can you give to someone right now who's watching you saying, I want to be the president of the company that I'm working for? A company similar to Procter and Gamble might be Procter and Gamble. I want to be the CEO of Procter and Gamble. What is it going to take for this person to have the highest probability of achieving that goal?
The simple answer, because such a question deserves a much longer and more comprehensive response, but I know we don't have time to do that now. But the simple answer would be master what you are required to do in every role that you have. Become a master at it. Be an expert. Be seen as an expert. So whatever it takes for you to do the job extremely well and master the role, you need to do. But beyond that, and alongside that, try to discern the difference between managing and leading, because there are clear differences in how one does those two things. And managers don't typically become CEOs of big companies like this. It takes people with leadership traits. And so it's important that while you're mastering the actual work that you do, that you start to gain and acquire those leadership traits that will see you securely in the future and make the path towards future leadership, and however high it is, an easier one for you.
Shabbir Jaffer, Senior Account Executive, Procter and Gamble, had an amazing 35-year career over there with them. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. You were a great influence on me during the 5 years that I was there. But not only that, beyond that, the friendship that we've had, I just appreciate every moment of it. And I know that you've also been a great mentor for many at the company. And, thank you for everything that you've done.
Thanks, Riyaz. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Shabbir Jaffer from Procter and Gamble. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, subscribe, like, and share. And turn those notifications on so you know every time we release a new video or decide to go live.